want us to start off by imagining a scenario. Now this exercise, there we go. Now this exercise is very reliant on the visuals, and I really want you to pay attention to who you interact with in your visualization. So close your eyes, take a deep breath, judges too, and let's begin. You wake up late for work one morning, you're rushing out the door, somehow make it in your car, you're on your way, when suddenly somebody crashes into you. You catch a glimpse of their face before they speed off. A classic hit and run. You call 911, and as officers arrive, they turn to you and say, "Don't worry, it's going to be okay." The next day, you're sat across the table from your boss at work, letting them know what happened to you the day before. Your boss lets you know you can take off some time if needed. A few days later, you're called down to the station to identify who did this to you. There are 3 suspects standing in front of you. Do you recognize who crashed into you? You let the officers know and you're escorted back to your car. You can now open your eyes. Do you remember who you saw? In your visualization, were the officers black, Asian, maybe even female? When you were sat across the table from your boss at work, was it someone who looked like me? And finally, if you identified your suspect, who did they look like? Now, there's nothing necessarily good or bad about these answers. It's just bias, and our brains are wired in it. I found this study through Valerie Alexander's TED Talk about our unconscious biases, and the results have remained steady. We don't just see people, we place them in roles, and that shapes the way that we view the world. So if we sitting here thought, we never thought we could be victim to the dangerous territory of bias, why are we so surprised when we see bias in others? The truth is, our brain is designed to form patterns, and these patterns are shaped by history, time, and the world around us. We don't just inherit family traditions or societal norms. We inherit biases too. Now, the unfortunate reality of bias is that it has the ability to make or break somebody's lives, and we see these tricks of bias echoing through history till today. For example, the case of the Central Park Five. 5 Black and Latino teenagers wrongfully accused of a brutal crime in 1989, and due to media bias, racial profiling, and public pressure, they spent years in prison before DNA evidence finally proved their innocence. But by then, it was already too late. Their lives had been shattered. Bias is not born. It is built. It is taught, reinforced, repackaged, and deployed again and again, shaping our world in ways we rarely stop to question. But one example is not enough. So let me walk you through history's favorite playbook. How to manufacture reality. Propaganda 101. Use time and time again to rewrite facts, justify oppression, and make injustice just too complicated to care about. Step 1, dehumanization. The goal, make a group seem less than human so that anything that happens to them seems reasonable. For example, the Holocaust. Nazi propaganda painted Jewish people as a threat. The result, 6 million lives lost, while the world either cheered or conveniently didn't know. Parallel to that, we have Palestine. Displaced people fighting for survival. No. Let's rebrand them as aggressors so that oppression seems like defense. The Rwandan genocide. State radio in 1994 called them cockroaches, and somehow everybody went, sounds legit. The result, 800,000 people murdered in just 100 days, while the world held a very long, very awkward silence. But dehumanization is just the setup. Now it's really time to shape the narrative with step 2, misinformation and narrative control. The goal, control people see, hear, and most importantly, believe. The Ukrainian Holodomor. Millions starved due to Soviet policies, but the official explanation was unfortunate weather. Yes, that totally normal famine that conveniently struck just one region. Makes sense. The African scramble and colonial crimes. European settlers carved up an entire nation in the name of progress and civilization, and to this day, history books still soften the brutality by using words like colonization instead of occupation and resource extraction instead of theft. Finally, we have today's media bias. Casualties when Palestinians die, but murders when Israelis do. The headlines basically tell you who to sympathize with before you've even read the story. How convenient. Now, with reality successfully bent, there is just one final step to keep the cycle going: silence and normalization. Make injustice seem like just another day in the news cycle. The South Africa apartheid. Governments dragged their feet for decades before calling apartheid a crime. Turns out, oppression takes time to process. Who knew? Palestine today. Just call it a complicated conflict, and you can delay action indefinitely. Genius. Finally, Islamophobia in the West. Want to normalize discrimination? Just slap national security on it, and suddenly, nobody's asking too many questions. And there you have it, the world's most successful rinse and repeat cycle. Dehumanize, manipulate, and silence. Now, before we act shocked at history's greatest injustices, each of these atrocities were years, if not decades, of engineered bias. And if we're thinking to ourselves, well, we wouldn't have believed that, we would have done something, then we need to ask ourselves, what are we doing now? Because the echoes of the past are not distant frequencies fading away. They are ongoing. Bias thrives in silence, and it continues to grow in inaction. In Canada alone, Muslims are amongst one of the most targeted religious groups, with hate crimes surging up 71% in Ontario since 2023, and Islamophobic incidents surging up 1,800%. How many more girls have to have their hijabs ripped off? How many more students have to face discrimination? And how many more individuals have to endure public hate crimes before we finally decide to take action? Imagine you were put in a room with those who are experts at perpetuating bias, experts at articulating their opinions and defending their debates. Be honest. Would you stand a chance at dismantling their agenda? See, too often we pressure decision makers to be just and to be fair, but why aren't we the ones in those positions? Why aren't we the ones shaping policies, leading industries, and steering conversations? The shortage of Muslim leadership just continues to add to the struggle that we face because we are not in the rooms where biases are created, decisions are made, and policies are drafted. We need to be in positions where we don't just defend, but define. Because after all, change begins at the top. We know that change is long overdue. But what are we going to do about it? I want you to remember that we have always been a people of hope. From the time of the prophet till today, we have always been persecuted, but we have always persevered, had patience, and had hope. Change has never been fast. Change has never been hasty, because in the same way that bias is not born, change is not born. It is built, it is taught, reinforced, repackaged, and it must be deployed again. So let the stories of the prophet echo in our mindsets today for us to be able to have the patience, perseverance, strength, and hope we need to see the change we so desperately want to see. A part of that change is our own individual transformations. So today I'm going to share 3 steps that we can take today to instill that change. First of all, we need to seek knowledge. We need to know our rights and we need to know our faith, because the best defense against misinformation is knowledge and understanding. So educate yourself on your history, your rights, and your religion, because ignorance is no longer an option. Step 2, we need to find ourselves mentors, because there's great strength and guidance in community. Whether it's teachers, elders, or peers, we know we need those around us who are going to push us to grow and who are going to advise us on when to listen, learn, and most importantly, when to strategize. Finally, we need to master the art of articulation, because knowledge without this skill is useless. And in a world where our words are so easily manipulated and twisted, now more than ever do we need to have this skill. So engage in public speaking, learn how to debate, and learn how to defend yourself and your opinions, because we have a choice. Fight against the bias, or continue to let it define us? So will we remain passive, allowing bias to shape the narrative? Because history is listening, and what we choose to echo today will become tomorrow's reality. Thank you.